The following is a special report from Los Angeles.
Now it's Tuesday,
July 28th.
That's terrific, Bill, but let's talk hockey.
Welcome back, Kings fans and loyal Royals. My name is Jesse Cohen. It is Tuesday, July 28th. This is Royal Half Radio. We got a lot of ground to cover today, so probably going to talk fast, and I'm probably going to forget some stuff, but we're going to try this. As always, I want to open up by encouraging you to join the LA Kings Booster Club. The barbecue is this past weekend. Again, for the $40 membership you get for a single person or $50 for a family of four. You get a tour of the facility. You get a ticket to the barbecue every summer, which gives you a tour of the locker room. And I don't know that I mentioned this yesterday, but one of the things that I particularly enjoy about the tour of the facility, aside from the chance to see the gym and hear from Darryl Evans and get to see the behind the scenes area, the players lounge, etc., getting a chance to see the locker room in July is an opportunity to see where all of the players sit in the locker room. So this weekend, for example, if you were there at the barbecue and had access to the locker room, you would have seen that Adrian Kempe has taken Anze Kopitar's spot at the top of the locker room. For those who don't know, and I've sort of mentioned it before, the locker room is laid out. I don't really know how to do it with the hand sign, but sort of like a horseshoe. Like you come in, well, I guess on this side, if the cameras, you come in through the door on this side, and then the players are seated around the room, and there's a door to the shower and medical facilities and everything on the opposite side of the entrance to the locker room. The goaltenders sit opposite each other on the ends of the horseshoe, and it's just an interesting chance to see where all the players sit. The defense lines up to the on the left side of the room, and once you hit the corner, it would have been Jacob Muvarari, well, and I guess Brian Dumoulin's down there, but then you start getting into the forwards, and then Anze Kopitar, the captain, sat at the top of the room. Then it curves back around, and the further you get towards the other goalie, who is the starter, generally speaking, then you get sort of down the lineup. Anyway, it's just interesting, and had the Kings not given out already the information of what numbers everybody was wearing, you would have had an opportunity to see some of the numbers. Not every player had a locker set up and ready for them. I'm assuming some players are still over in Europe. I don't remember now off the top of my head. I want to say I didn't see Zuccarello, or no, I did see Zuccarello's locker. I think maybe Eric Howla and Eric Gustafsson. I don't think I saw their lockers, so I'm assuming they haven't come over yet. I did see where Corey Perry was sat as well. Corey Perry was near the top of the room, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with seniority. I mean, I don't know how they decide who sits where. I know that, Drew Doughty's probably been sitting in the same spot. He's been sitting in that spot for as long as I've been going in the locker room, and probably before that. But yeah, a couple guys moved around. So anyway, just an interesting reason to join the Booster Club, an opportunity to just get a glimpse behind the scenes, and it's worth it. And then there's giveaways, and you get access to merch, and to, Josh Schaefer was at the barbecue. I was at the barbecue. Darryl Evans was at the barbecue. Bailey was there, some of the ice crew. So, it's worth it. I think it's truly, truly worth it. And then in addition, I would urge you to join the Loyal Royals, which is my little community. And, I've talked about this before, but now that it's starting to actually happen, I'm going to start giving people the opportunity. Zach, and they're going to put the address up again there. Patreon.com/CW/the Loyal Royals. Also, by the way, if you want to join the show, you can scan the QR code or send a text to 323-628-1008. We have interviews with the assistant coaches coming up. Chris Height, Phil Housley, Ray Whitney. So if you want me to ask, if you have a question that you are dying to know, for example, somebody recently asked me about whether or not the AHL team would be mimicking Peter Laviolette's style the way that the AHL team was asked to mimic Todd McClellan's style, which is a very good question, and I had not thought to ask that of Peter Laviolette, but that's a very good question that I will now bring up when we speak to, Ray Whitney and Chris Height and Phil Housley. But if you want to send a question to me, I will accept those questions and consider them, but you got to be a member of the Loyal Royals. So that's one more reason that you may want to join the Loyal Royals, is because as I do have access to coaching staff, front office staff, once the season starts, I'll get access to players. That hopefully I hope to extend that opportunity to you as well. Now, if you want to ask something totally inappropriate, you can ask me, but I'm not going to ask them. But that would be a reason to join. Why does the banner keep disappearing? That's very annoying. That would be a reason to join the Loyal Royals. Okay, moving on. It's still July, right? We know that, so there's not a ton going on. But the World Junior Showcase, Summer Showcase, is happening. The Kings are represented by 4 players: Jimmy Lombardi, Verdi Svensk, Henry Brustevich, and Elton Hermanson. We've got a couple videos to show you. One has no sound, one does have sound, and we're going to start with no sound, and this is the assist that Elton Hermanson had in the World Junior Summer Showcase. And I'm sorry there's no sound, so you're just going to have to listen to me talk over. It's obviously Sweden versus USA White. USA split its team into 2 teams. You saw the assist there from Elton Hermanson. I was talking. Sorry, I'll back it up so you can see it again. You can watch Elton Hermanson cut in on the right side and feed his teammate on the left for the easy goal. Here comes Hermanson. There's the pass, and there's the goal. So there's the video with no sound, and the video with sound is someone from Team Canada asked about Jimmy Lombardi.
Set that Jimmy Lombardi has, how does that really lend itself to an important contribution on a team like this?
Yeah, he's an intriguing player for us. He's got good energy, good speed, has really good puck skills. Obviously had a really good year in Flint. He's a guy that hasn't spent a lot of time in our programs, and I think this is an opportunity for him for us to get to know him better and for him to understand, what the expectations are to put the jersey on. So I think it'll be a real good experience for him, and we're looking forward to see how it plays out in the process for him as well.
So there you have it. That is all the news so far from the World Junior Summer Showcase. Not a ton of you can watch the U.S. Hockey Sickos Watch. You can watch the World Junior Summer Showcase. I forget the website. It's very expensive. I think it's like $75 if you want to watch it. I'm not paying it. I'm not watching it. The World Junior Summer Showcase, it's fine, but I don't know, follow John Hoven, follow Mayor's Manor and the Team Mayor's Manor staff if you want updates, because there's only a handful of games. It's really expensive to watch them. I forget the name of the website right now, but I don't. That's all I got to say about that. No, it's not Flow Hockey. It's its own website, DTLA Kings fan. Flow Hockey to me is absolutely worth the investment. Flow Hockey, you get a year's worth of a ton of different leagues, but this is a very specific website. I'm just blanking on it right now. Meanwhile, another website that I find totally worth the investment is The Athletic. And The Athletic ranked, Harmon Dayal, who writing on behalf of The Athletic, ranked every NHL team's top 6 center duos from worst to first. Now, as soon as I saw the headline and I saw people talking about it, my first question was, well, who's the Kings' top 2 centers? Like, if you're going to rank the Kings' top 2 centers, I need to know who the person doing more comments of people saying they bet that it's on Flow Hockey. It is not on Flow Hockey. I don't know what to tell you. The World Junior Summer Showcase is not on Flow Hockey. It's now you're going to make me look it up right now. This is how rage baitable I am. And I can't even find them. I thought I could Google the website. Oh, it's hnlive.ca. That's the website. And it's very expensive, as I recall. I'm not going to sign up because I'm not even going to look for the price. Free on TSN in Canada, sure, but we don't live in TSN, so there you go. Anyway, going back to The Athletic. The Athletic set out to rank NHL team's top 6 center duos. And like I said, I wanted to know who the top 2 centers are, because I don't think it's immediately obvious. And I think I disagree with a lot of people on who I would make the top 2 centers for the Kings. And I have reasons for that. So anyway, I looked at the article because I have a subscription to The Athletic. And you'll see on my screen here, they list Quentin Byfield and Eric Howla as the number 1 and number 2 center. And there's a 2-paragraph write-up basically about whether or not Byfield can be a true number 1 center. Very little discussion about the possibility of Eric Howla being the second center. And then there's a 3rd paragraph I didn't include in the screenshot that pays lip service to Turcotte and Lawton and Hellenius and everything. But realistically, Harman Dial thinks it's Quentin Byfield and Eric Howla. And I don't say this with any intended disrespect to Harman Dial, but he's also the guy who did that video about a month ago talking about the Kings fumbling the number 1 prospect pool. And this is just a weird detail about me personally. I don't mind people who like to complain about stuff, but I mind if I think you're complaining wrong, and I think Harman Dial has complained wrong in that video. And I certainly don't think Eric Howla is the number 2 center for the LA Kings. And part of that reason is that if the second line is Kevin Fiala, Eric Howla, and Matt Zuccarello, as a lot of people are assuming it will be, and it frankly has to be, if your top line is Byfield, Panarin, and Kempe, and I understand why people think that would be the top line, and I see a lot of people saying we quote-unquote need to find out if Quentin Byfield can be a top-line center, and my argument is, well, we've already found out, and the answer simply is no. They didn't think he would be. If they thought he could have been, he already would have been. But this is something that was driving me crazy, so I looked it up, and I'm going to share with you 2 screenshots combined into one screen here. The top is something from Reddit, and it's a commenting that Kevin Fiala was listed at 5'7". And then another is a screenshot from NHL.com from a few years ago that talks, and I highlighted it, that mentions Kevin Fiala as 5'10", 198 pounds. Now he's listed currently as 6 feet tall. And the reason I highlighted the 5'10" bit there on the screen is because I have stood next to Kevin Fiala in the locker room plenty of times. And as a result of me going to the hospital a bajillion times over the last, 24 months, I know definitively that I'm 5'9" on my best day. And if I'm 5'9", Kevin Fiala is not 6 feet tall. Most of the guys that are listed at 6 feet tall, if I'm 5'9", are not 6 feet tall. The guys that are listed as 6'6", 6'7", Ribkin and Hellenius and Jack Sparks and Caleb Lawrence, those guys are absolutely that tall. There's a ton of guys who are not 6 feet tall. And a line of Howla, Zuccarello, and Fiala would be incredibly small, incredibly old. Well, I don't know about incredibly old, but Zuccarello's 39, Howla's 34, and I believe Kevin Fiala is about to be 30. And Kevin Fiala is coming back from a leg injury. So I just don't think that line, I just don't think it's that obvious that line is the second line, in which case Howla isn't necessarily the second line center. And if I am correct, and I think it will be Adrian Kempe tried out as the number 1 center, I think Kempe and Byfield are a fair bit better than Byfield and Howla. Anyway, the end result is that the Kings get ranked 30th out of 32, which is fair enough, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Derek in the Ridge says, I live here in Vancouver. Harman has great information and analysis at times. He also loves to have these takes that look to solely get engagement. I mean, listen, I don't have a problem with people having takes. I just want people to know what they're talking about to have a take, right? Like, I was invited on a show this past weekend and asked to offer my grades on different players and coaches and everything. And I was asked to grade, for example, I'm blanking on his name already, Newell Brown, the power play coach last season for the Kings. And I said I wasn't comfortable giving a grade because we know sort of vaguely that Newell Brown was the power play coach, but we also know that Jim Hiller took ownership and control of the power play for a lot of the time. So unless I'm in the room and I know so anyway, like I said, if you're going to have a take like that, you need to know what you're talking about, and no disrespect to Harman Dial, but I just don't think he follows the Kings close enough. I think there's a lot of stuff about the Kings. We're going to get into it again. did the research, found those pictures that I was talking about yesterday on the jersey story. There's a lot of information out there that's easily found. You just, like, for example, that screenshot that is currently living behind my face on the internet, right there on the screen. I found it on NHL.com from a few years ago. Kevin Fiala listed at 5'10", according to the NHL.com 3 years ago, but now currently listed at 6 feet. So, it's easy to fact check. It's easy to not take things at face value. You just have to be willing to put in the extra work. And that's what I'm here for. I'm a nitpicker. So I'm here to nitpick other people's hot takes. Meanwhile, it's time to wish people happy birthday. 3 birthdays today in Kings history. July 28th, Aki Pateri Berg. And 2 guys that I promise you've never heard of. Don House, that card, no shot that's a real card, because that picture of Don is clearly from his post-playing days, so somebody whipped together a fake card. And then the other gentleman's name that I am currently blanking on was another one of those guys who just didn't play that many games, and the only pictures I could find of him were pictures that the Kingstorian had put on his Twitter account, and I didn't want to just lift photos. But it is Kevin Shamahorn. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce his name, Shamahorn. Anyway, Kevin Shamahorn, not a ton of photos, no cards of him as a member of the LA Kings, because as it turns out, he just didn't play that many games with the LA Kings. He played 5 games, 0 points, 0 goals, 0 assists, 4 penalty minutes, was a -1 in the 1980-81 season. Only played 10 games in the NHL, so unfortunately not a lot of photos of Kevin Shamahorn. But happy birthday to Aki Berg and Don House and Shamahorn. So that is the birthdays. Now, today's date in Kings history. Oh, wait, sorry, going to go back to some comments first. Crazy how this Kempe at 1C is a real possibility. Personally, I believe he's going to shine. Here's the thing, Caleb. I know you're super thrilled about it. I don't think it's a good idea. I want to state that just for the record. I just think it's the best of a bunch of bad options. Like, I don't think it's a great idea. I think Adrian Kempe should stay at wing. That's where he's been playing. Like, I understand all the arguments for why you wouldn't do it. I just don't think there's a better option. So, whatever. He grew up a Canucks fan. His views and takes have always slanted very pro Canucks. I'm assuming that's about Harman Dial. He seems like a nice guy. I don't know. I have grade for Newell Brown, but my mother said if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I'm like, a lot of people do DTLA Kings fans. I just, like I'm saying, I don't know. The Kings power play was terrible last year. He was the power play coach, so I get it. It's very easy to connect the dots, but like, I wasn't in the locker room, and we heard Jim Hiller say he was going to take control of the power play, and then he walked it back, and I have reasons that I won't go into that I think he walked it back, organizational reasons, and I think Jim Hiller had a lot of oversight over the power play, and I'm not sure it was necessarily Newell Brown's fault. So I don't know. Unless I know how much to blame Newell Brown, I'm not sure how much to praise Newell Brown, and I don't know. So anyway, if you know who Aki Berg is, your back probably hurts. Yes, Aki Berg is from way back in the way back. Derek in the Ridge says, I do remember Aki, and I also have back pain. Yeah, Aki Berg was great. Well, great is too strong a word, but I liked Aki Berg. He never really got a fair shake of things. So that brings the birthdays. That brings us to today's date in Kings history. And this video is a little bit long. I'll cut it off. I'll let it play for a little bit and then I'll cut it short. But today's date in Kings history is essentially the day that the rebuild died.
Connection to the Los Angeles Kings as well. And I look at this deal and I say to myself, how many Selke Trophy candidates can one team have? Anze Kopitar and now Philip Deneau. Your thoughts on this deal?
That's what I was thinking. It's a great move for Los Angeles. Obviously, adding that kind of depth down the middle. Ever since, I mean, we used to have it with the Jeff Carters and the Jarrett Stolls and the Mike Richards. Veteran centerman depth, something that's been lacking there. Great defensive consciousness, obviously with Kopitar being a perennial Selke winner. You add Deneau to the mix. The one thing I do say, though, it's credit to Mark Yannetti and his group that's put together this froth of prospects. But now you've got Turcotte, Byfield, Gabe Vilardi. You've got a lot of people down the middle. So it also frees you up when you have that many great assets that if you want to go out and get a big scoring winger that might be available, you've got the cap space and you certainly have the young assets to move if you want to make another move.
You know what? And Anthony, Mike just mentioned there a second ago one name specifically, and that's Quentin Byfield, 2 drafts ago, first-round draft pick of the Los Angeles Kings. If you're Byfield, all of a sudden you've got Kopitar to learn from, and now Philip Deneau as well. Bonus Byfield?
I thought you were going to say call my agent, because now I'm probably stuck on the third or fourth line. But again, it's a learning process, and I'm sure, you know, him being down in the minors, but learning from these guys is definitely going to help his career too. And he came up at the end of the year last year and did a fairly good job too. So it doesn't help. It's probably going to delay his development a little bit more. But when he steps in Byfield, he's going to be a star in the league for sure.
All right, Bodrow, what are you thinking?
All right, I'm going to cut it off right there because it goes on for 2 minutes and you guys want to see that. But anyway, today, July 28th, 2021, the Kings signed Phil Deneau and Alex Edler, which essentially, as far as I'm concerned, signaled a shift out of the rebuild, the reimagining, the retool, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, it really annoys me that still to this day, 2026, I have the voice in my head that's like, don't call it a rebuild, because at the time, that was the propaganda. I don't know what to call it. That was the message from ownership, was like, don't call it a rebuild. It's not a rebuild. It was very clearly a rebuild. It wasn't a tear it down to the studs rebuild. Edler was a good pickup, Joseph Dunbar. So was Arvidsson. So was Phil Deneau. Listen, that team went from being very bad to a playoff team that made the playoffs 5 or 6 years in a row. And I understand that Edler retired and Arvidsson left because of injuries, and then Phil Deneau, you know, forced his way out of town with a trade. But like, those three guys made the team better. But that was very clearly the sign that the Kings were done drafting high in the first round. They got their 3 top 10 picks, Byfield, Clark, and Turcotte, and then they had enough of that. They brought in Phil Deneau, they brought in Alex Edler, and earlier that month they brought in Victor Arvidsson. That was it. They were done, and so they made the playoffs. That is this date in Kings history. Now, I did want to talk about the LA Kings Hall of Fame again, because I'm going to keep promoting this all week long. August will be Hall of Fame month for Royal Half Radio. I think the Kings do have a Hall of Fame. There are only 9 members in it. I believe that the Kings should be adding more members every year. This is an organization that's about to have 60 years of history. Some of those years were very, very good. Even the years that were very, very bad, Kings fans who have been around for a long time know that there are players worth remembering. Today, we're going to talk about 2 members. Yesterday, we talked about Rob Blake. Today, we're going to talk about Wayne Gretzky and Luc Robitaille, because we're going in reverse order of when the members were added to the LA Kings Hall of Fame. And Robitaille was added in 2007. Gretzky was added in 2002, and that is when their jerseys were retired. Social Mako wants to know, did Phil want out because of Hiller? That's between Phil and Jim. I don't know. I can't comment on that. But I will say, kind of. I probably shouldn't have said that, but that's what I'm going to say. All right, so we're going to talk about Luc Robitaille and Wayne Gretzky. And first, before we get into their careers, I do want to talk about the story that I told yesterday from the barbecue, where somebody asked about the jersey design and the colors. And I found a clip of Luc Robitaille talking about it, and then I went back and found some stuff that I had bookmarked. So here, really quickly, is Luc Robitaille telling the story.
Around that time, he was going to change the Kings colors, and it was going to be, if you look at this jersey and it's in black, everything was the same, but it was dark blue. Bruce McNall's color of his company was a very dark blue. So I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I said, oh, that's really cool, Mr. McNall. But I said, you should see my junior team. I said, we had the same, but it was black. And I said, that was Gretzky changed it because he liked the Raiders. I just said that in January, not thinking anything.
Because you knew it.
And then when I went to the All-Star game, they saw, somehow there was a film of it in junior, and Bruce saw it, but he was trying to get Gretz. I don't think Gretz knows that, but I think Bruce was like, if Gretzky designed those jersey in junior, it's the same jersey we had in junior, different logo.
Wow.
That 1 year only, that 1 year, before that, we were another color.
Right.
So there's Luc Robitaille telling the story about Wayne Gretzky changing the jerseys of his junior team. And here you can see right here is a picture of Wayne Gretzky holding up the old Hull jersey. It's cropped out poorly. I apologize for that. But here's a picture of the full uniform that Luc Robitaille, you can see him there on the far right. He's the tallest of the three, wearing the full Hull Olympiques jersey. Now, I think they wore Cooperalls, which is the long pants. There's very few clips of those teams playing, but I found a couple, and it looks like they're wearing the long pants when they wore the blue and yellow. Then here's a newspaper clipping from the Ottawa Citizen, and you can see there Wayne Gretzky in between two players for the Hull Olympiques. And the headline is Olympiques sporting LA Raiders colors, but the article itself mentions that the colors were the Volants, the team that used to play, that was very old, and I think Pat Burns was there when the change was made. The team previously, before the Olympiques, wore black and white, I guess. So it's unclear whether or not Wayne Gretzky liked the Raiders, but there is an article out there that claims that Bruce McNall spoke to Al Davis and got his permission for the Kings to change to black, white, and silver. Apparently, there's a documentary. I can't remember. I think it's a 30 for 30 about the Raiders where Al Davis says that he wished he hadn't given permission. Anyway, once, and here's a photo of Luc Robitaille wearing the black, white, and silver, or gray, as the articles all say, the Hull jersey there. But it's not exactly the same jersey as the Kings wear, but it's very, very close. You can see there in the photo, the black jersey differs a lot more than the white jersey. The white jersey has the same tricolor sleeves with the numbers in the elbow color patch, whatever you want to call it. Again, Dave Courtney told Matt Murray and I many years ago that he actually designed the jerseys when the color change was made. But nonetheless, Luc Robitaille and Wayne Gretzky linked in more ways than one. And I don't know. I just think that's an incredible story. I think it's a neat detail, and it's a detail that I wish that they would do a better job of promoting and leaning into, because it's easy to put the sort of chatter to rest about, oh, they were just doing this or they were just doing that. DTLA Kings fan says, quick note about Flow Hockey. If pay for the annual subscription for the upcoming season by this Friday, price is $120 instead of $150. There you go. Okay. That's great. And you can watch, I think, like every Reign game, plus all the juniors and a bunch of foreign. Flow Hockey is an incredible deal. And you get access to Chris Peters stuff. I like Flow Hockey. I'm not paying for the summer showcase, though. Anyway, getting back to the Hall of Fame. So Luc Robitaille is inducted into the LA Kings Hall of Fame when his jersey retired in 2007. Luc Robitaille was drafted by LA in 1984, 171st overall. And everybody's favorite piece of Kings trivia is that the Kings also drafted Tom Glavine, the baseball player, the pitcher, in the 4th round that year, 69th overall. So if you want to know how far scouting has come in the last, 30 years, 40 years, the Kings drafted Tom Glavine 3 rounds before they drafted Luc Robitaille. Tom Glavine went on to have an excellent career in Major League Baseball. Luc Robitaille, a 171st overall pick, wound up being a Hall of Famer. He scored a goal in his first game on his first shift in his first shot. He was on a line with Dion and Brian Erickson. It was against the St. Louis Blues. The Kings lost 4-3 that night in October 9th, 1986. I'm not sure that this story is true, but it sounds like a good story. Luc Robitaille's nickname is Lucky Luke. And there are versions of the story that go, he was called Lucky because his first game he got to play with Marcel Dion, and so he gets a goal in his first game, first shift, first shot. Rarely happens. I think Gabe Velarde pulled off the same trick many years later. Anyway, scored against Rick Wamsley for anybody who cares. Luc Robitaille was traded to Pittsburgh July 30th, 1994 for Rick Tocchet and a second-round pick. That second-round pick wound up being used on Pavel Rosa, who was a... There was a brief period of time in the 90s where we all were sold a bill of goods about the prospects that the Kings had, and Pavel Rosa was one of those names that we were like, yeah, Pavel Rosa, he's going to be great one day. He had a great, I'm sure he had a fine career, but like none of you know who Pavel Rosa is unless you know who Aki Berg is. and I've told this story tons of times before. Luc Robitaille was my favorite player. I had his poster on my wall. I had his jersey, and I was at a party at a friend's house, and his older brother, who wound up working for the Padres, came running down the hallway, very excited to tell me that Luc Robitaille had been traded just because he wanted to watch me be unhappy about it. So thanks, Craig, for being the one to break that news to me. I was very upset about it. And again, some weird link between Robitaille and Gretzky. At the time that Robitaille was traded, here's a quote from Pat Brisson. This is a quote from an article at the time of the trade. One of Robitaille's agents, Pat Brisson, addressed a touchy subject that Robitaille will certainly discuss today. Quote, Wayne Gretzky is one of the greatest players ever. Luc learned a lot from Wayne, Brisson said, but Wayne is a player and should not be making the decisions. I don't know if he does or not. And then in a different article surrounding the trade, quote, if it was still Mr. McNall as the owner, I would still be here, Robitaille said. He always told me he would never trade me, and he never did. Quote, players should play and managers should manage, Robitaille said. I never spoke out about that. I just think it should be that way. In Pittsburgh, players are worried about playing, and that's it. And that was taken at the time, and I'm assuming hasn't been changed. That was taken at the time to insinuate that Wayne Gretzky was behind that trade because Rick Tocchet was one of Wayne Gretzky, well, remains, as far as I know, one of Wayne Gretzky's best friends. And there were rumors swirling for a very long time that the Kings were looking to trade to acquire Rick Tocchet, and Luc Robitaille was the asking price. Now, in a weird twist of fate, Rick Tocchet was ultimately traded for Kevin Stevens, who was then traded for Luc Robitaille. So it was like just a weird triangle that brought Luc Robitaille all the way back around. Luc Robitaille won the Calder Trophy as the best rookie in the National Hockey League in 1986, and of course he has the most goals in Kings history with 557. So Social Mako 7993 says, I heard Luc got traded because of a locker room situation. I haven't heard anything like that. I only remember that there was a brief time in the 90s where, like, if you were the most popular player on the team, you wound up getting traded. Like the fans voted for the most popular player. I think it was like Marty McSorley one year and then Luc Robitaille the next year. And I'm sure that's not true, that Wayne Gretzky was trying to get guys traded because they were more popular than him. But Caleb Rappaport says Gretzky traded Luc's best friend Steve Duchesne for Curry. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge problem with that. Yari Curry was pretty good. The Rick Tocchet one is tougher because the Kings went to the Stanley Cup final and then didn't make the playoffs for the next, 5-6 years. And Rick Tocchet was here during that. At least Curry was here for some playoff runs. Steve Duchesne, whatever. Anyway, again, more links between Gretzky and Robitaille, but when you have two players like that who are that good playing together, it's sort of impossible that the two of them aren't going to have links. Joseph Dunbar says, Marty McSorley is a great person. Honestly, wish he was still around the team. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, he lives out in Phoenix, I think, or one of the towns near or around Phoenix. I see him at the game every now and then. I mean, he's around, but he's not. He's not around. And also, whatever. Share that thought later. I remember speaking to Kings draft pick Andrew Dale that Luc ran the dressing room completely. Yeah, I mean, listen, Luc's got a big personality. He is a friendly guy. He's an affable guy. He's very good at being Luc Robitaille. So I have no problem believing that Luc Robitaille ran the room and that Gretzky was a more reserved, awkward guy, just because that's how they come across on TV. I don't know either of them. I know Luc way better than I know Wayne, but I mean, I don't know Luc personally. I know some of his family members, and I know him obviously from working for the team and seeing him a million times and talking to him a million times, but I wouldn't say we're friends or anything. Anyway, that brings us then to Wayne Gretzky, and obviously, is Marty in the Kings Hall of Fame? Marty McSorley is not in the Kings Hall of Fame, and that is something we can address in a future season, or maybe we'll let the fans address it this year. But no, the 9 people in the LA Kings Hall of Fame are Rob Blake, Luc Robitaille, Wayne Gretzky, Marcel Dion, Dave Taylor, Bob Miller, Pete Demers, Butch Goring. I should have counted because I've lost count, but hold on. Blake, Gretzky, Robitaille, Dion, Vachon. I left Vachon off. Vachon, Taylor, Miller, Demers, Goring. Yeah, that's it. That's 9. There you go. Yes, Luke blamed Wayne for him being traded for Tocchet. Yes, Johnny, I just addressed that in the 2 quotes I read from the articles. It seemed very clear that the opinion at the time, now I don't know if that opinion has held over the years because things change, you learn stuff, who knows. How many Jean-Claude Van Damme movies has each player been featured in? Well, for anybody who's ever seen the movie Sudden Death, which is a quintessential 90s action movie and one of my absolute favorites for tons of reasons, not the least of which is that Luc Robitaille is in it. So 1 for Luc Robitaille, 0 for Wayne Gretzky. But Marty McSorley also, I think, was in Con Air. Is that right? Somebody double check that fact for me. I think Marty McSorley was in Con Air. Yes, the Rafters plus Demers and Goring. That is correct. Yeah, Marty is in Con Air. Thank you, Johnny Uza. So yeah, that's the point, Joseph Dunbar. I want the LA Kings Hall of Fame list to be updated. And so that's why we're doing this. That's why I'm getting you familiar with the people that are already in the Hall of Fame. Come August 3rd, which is next Monday, I will be announcing the 3 players and other non-playing members that I will be inducting into the Loyal Royals LA Kings Hall of Fame first class. So just let's keep this in mind. It's the first class. We're going to do this every year. So we're not going to do 40 people in 1 year. So I don't want to see everybody's lists of 18 different people that you think belong in. We're going to do this slowly. The entire point of this is to be able to do it every August. So in the first class, we're going to do a handful of people. There may be some names that you don't think that should be in there that you think are not in there. I get it, but I think you'll agree at least with the first round. No 2000. Well, I don't want to say no 2012 players. But the ones that are still playing or just retired, no. Anze Kopitar, Jonathan Quick, Drew Doughty, no. But the guys who have been gone for a while, find out on August 3rd. August 3rd will be the first name that I give, and I don't think I'll get any pushback on it, frankly. Anyway, I do want to talk about Wayne Gretzky a little bit because he is the other name that we were going to set to talk about today. Obviously, he was traded from the Edmonton Oilers with Mike Kruzhelnyski and Marty McSorley to the Kings for Jimmy Carson, Martin Jelinas. We talked about him yesterday. First round pick in the 1989 draft, first round pick in the 1991 draft, first round pick in the 1993 draft, and $15 million in cash. And I don't think a lot of people ever talk about the $15 million in cash part or really focus on it. But the $15 million in cash, if you ask me, is why that trade really happened. They had to send a lot of good players and all those draft picks to make it sound sane. But Peter Pocklington needed money and Bruce McNall was stealing a lot of money. And so he bought. You can't trade cash for players anymore. They outlawed that with the 2005 collective bargaining agreement, but you used to be able to just trade cash for players, and $15 million thrown in on top of a deal for Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky, there's very few players that I would say this about, but Wayne Gretzky's the kind of player that no amount of draft picks, no amount of players included in a trade is ever going to replace what you lose in trading away a player like that. No disrespect to Mike Kruzhelnyski, to Jimmy Carson or Martin Jelinas. Listen, Edmonton won a Stanley Cup after the Gretzky trade. The Kings didn't. So, you could argue that they got it. They got their players worth. But the 3 draft picks, Jason Miller, Martin Rucinski, and Nick, I don't even know how you pronounce that name, but if you go look it up, then the 89 draft pick, the 91 draft pick, and the 93 draft pick, Oilers won one more Stanley Cup, and then that was that. So those guys didn't develop into anything. Jimmy Carson wound up in Detroit, I think, eventually. Martin Jelinas bounced all over the league. They hardly built a second dynasty around the players acquired or the draft picks acquired in trading Wayne Gretzky. It was just a cash grab. It was just Peter Pocklington needed money, which is why Peter Pocklington was burned in effigy on the streets of Edmonton by crazed Oilers fans, because everybody knew what the deal was. It was just, it was just a bonkers trade. Anyway, Gretzky comes to LA, scores a goal and 3 assists in his first Kings game, an 8-2 win over the Red Wings. Gretzky won 3 Art Ross trophies while in LA, 1 Hart Trophy, 3 Lady Bings, and ultimately was traded to St. Louis in 1996 in one of the, I think, worst trades in franchise history, only because it was trading away Wayne Gretzky. And I get it. He was old Gretzky, not peak Gretzky, but he was still Wayne Gretzky. And the Kings got Patrice Tardif, Craig Johnson, Roman Vopat, a 5th-round pick in the 1996 draft, Peter Hogan, and a 1st-round pick in the 1997 draft. And through no fault of the Kings' well, I suppose it is some fault, but like, you still get a 1st-round pick. But the fact that they used that 1st-round pick on Matt Zoltek, couldn't sign him, he then went back into the draft and was drafted by somebody else, means that that's the 1st-round pick you got in the Gretzky trade turned into nothing. Roman Vopat was another one of those players like Pavel Rosa that was supposed to be one of the young guys that was going to be the future of the club. And because he was acquired in the Gretzky trade, I think a lot of us, including my young dumb self, were like, oh yeah, Roman Vopat. Yeah, Roman Vopat. Listen, they traded him for Gretzky, so he's got to be good, right? No, he was fine. That was about it. His brother also played for the Kings. Patrice Tardif didn't have a ton of impact, and Craig Johnson. Listen, I know Craig Johnson. I actually happen to think the world of Craig Johnson. I think he's an incredible coach. I was disappointed when he wound up leaving the Kings organization. So the joke I'm about to make, please understand that it is just a joke. I like Craig very much. But the biggest impact Craig Johnson had on the LA Kings was kneeing Adam Deadmarsh and ending his career. So there you go. Craig Johnson was Austin Wagner before Austin Wagner was Austin Wagner. He was very, very fast. Couldn't score goals nearly as well as he could create opportunities. But anyway, that was, you liked Roman Vopat. I'm sure you did, Johnny Utah. But the reality is, Roman Vopat, I mean, I don't even know how many games Roman Vopat played as a member of the LA Kings. I'm going to look it up right now just out of curiosity. But I'll be shocked if it was more than 150. Frankly, I'll be shocked if it was more than 100. All right, Roman Vopat played 29 games in the 96-97 season, 25 games in the 97-98 season, and 3 in the 98-99 season before going on to play 3 games with the Chicago Blackhawks, 48 games with the Philadelphia Flyers, and then spending the next 10 years playing across Europe in the Czech League, in Liga, in the Swedish League, and in Denmark. So I'm not sure that saying you liked Roman Vopat is like exactly the feather in your cap that you wanted to put. Anthony asks, wasn't Gretzky almost traded to Vancouver? That's how the story goes. Evidently, the Vancouver Canucks were prepared to offer him an ownership share, and he wound up not doing that and winding up in LA, and there are all sorts of rumors about that. Anyway, the Gretzky era in LA is credited as being responsible for the southern expansion of hockey into the southern markets in the United States. I think that's overrated. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but that's the rhetoric. And nonetheless, there's an entire generation of Kings fans, myself included, that would not be Kings fans had it not been for the Wayne Gretzky trade. And as much as I may push back on some of the rhetoric, just because that's my nature, I do have to confess that if it weren't for the Wayne Gretzky trade and if it weren't for that 1993 Cup run, I don't think I'd be as big a Kings fan as I am. And, I know I speak on behalf of everybody in their 40s, Kings fans in their 40s, late 30s, early 50s. The Gretzky trade came along at exactly the right time for us. And it was a ton of fun. It was great fun. So yeah, there you have it. Luc Robitaille and Wayne Gretzky and Rob Blake, 3 members of the LA Kings Hall of Fame. Tomorrow we will get into, well, hold on, let me just see if I should tease you who we're going to talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Pete Demers and Bob Miller, because Bob Miller, obviously the broadcaster, Pete Demers, the longtime head athletic trainer. Then on Thursday, we'll talk about Marcel Dion and Butch Goring. And on July 31st, we'll talk about Dave Taylor and Rogie Vachon, because those were guys who were also general managers of the team, just like Rob Blake. Luc Robitaille and Wayne Gretzky were not general managers, although Luc Robitaille has served as president of the organization in one facet or another for a very long time. Demers and Miller were not players, so we'll get them out of the way tomorrow. Although I shouldn't say get them out of the way as if there's nothing to talk about. Obviously, Bob Miller was a huge part of a ton of people's lives. Joseph Dunbar says, I was 12. I don't remember watching hockey before the trade. Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, I mean, listen, the plot of Slapshot, everybody's favorite hockey movie, although it should be Miracle, but the plot of everybody's favorite hockey movie that came out a decade before the trade, if not more, was, hey, let's move this team to Florida. Let's move this team into the southern states. So the idea that Gretzky was responsible for the southern expansion to me is hollow. But nonetheless, I'm a Kings fan because of the Wayne Gretzky trade. So there you have it. Marty and Wayne got me hooked in 1992. No surprise there, Johnny, because you obviously like players like Marty McSorley. Goon is the best hockey movie, or Mystery Alaska. It's definitely not Mystery Alaska. I really like Goon. I really like Goon 2. But I just think Miracle as a movie, never mind a hockey movie, I just happen to think Miracle is better. Anyway, whatever. Basically, everyone who's had their number retired was also enshrined in the Hall of Fame, except for some reason Butch Goring was also enshrined. Dustin Brown wasn't. Dustin Brown, I don't know if you mean the Hockey Hall of Fame or the LA Kings Hall of Fame. Dustin Brown wasn't in the LA Kings Hall of Fame. I suspect because they forgot about the LA Kings Hall of Fame, and I say that because I pitched my ideas about the LA Kings Hall of Fame while I worked there, which included the period of time that Dustin Brown's jersey was retired. Dustin Brown will not wind up in the Hockey Hall of Fame, or if he does, it'll be a very long time from now. I like Dustin Brown. I have no problem with him having a statue. I have no problem with him being recognized by the LA Kings, but in the grand scheme of hockey, yeah, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Did the team just forget they have a Hall of Fame between retiring Blake's number and Brown's? Yeah, I suspect that's what happened. Yes. I don't know that for sure, but yes, I suspect that's what happened. Paul Newman claimed that was his favorite movie that he worked on. Yeah. Dustin Brown is in the American Hockey Hall of Fame. That's fine. The American Hockey Hall of Fame is not the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's the American Hockey Hall of Fame. Youngblood was amazing. Youngblood was fine. I mean, I'll fight people about that later. Statue does not look like Dustin Brown. It doesn't. It's true. And I've interviewed the guy who did the statue on All the King's Men. And if there is ever a statue for Drew Doughty, Andrei Kopitar, or Jonathan Quick, I suspect very much it'll be the same guy because he does a lot of the statues. The Dustin Brown statue, not his best work. Happens to the best of us. Listen, there's a video going to come out very soon of me interviewing some of the guys at development camp. And I got to tell you, that's my Dustin Brown statue. It's not my finest work. It happens. We all have bad days. I'm not really proud of it. But anyway, regardless, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks everybody for joining me. Again, join the Booster Club, join the Loyal Royals. One last thing, actually, I wanted to talk about, where did it go? I wanted to talk about this crown because I chose it this week. I had the Kings logo as the background. I really like this crown. It doesn't have a name. I don't know what to call it. How do I make my face go in a different place so I can talk while you also look at the crown? We'll try that one. It doesn't really make it better. I really like this crown. I don't know why this crown doesn't get, wow, my head's too small on that one, but whatever. I think that crown to me is the real crown. And so I like it. I'm not going to use it on any sort of official Loyal Royal stuff or Royal Half stuff because I don't know what the copyright situation is. But for something like this, I'll slap it up behind me, and I just think it's a cool crown. I really like it. Anyway, come back tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you.
You know, we do the best we can, but thanks for watching.
It's July. There's no hockey on television. I hate summer.
This is the worst time.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Check out my Patreon.
Blah, blah, blah.
Come back tomorrow.
Maybe it'll be better this time.